So user experience is a little bit like a poem. Everyone has their own interpretation of it, and it's full of metaphors that are not really that easy to understand if you're new to this. So let's break it down into something much simpler. Just use standard words normal humans use instead of those heuristics and customer journey mapping and all that. And of course we're gonna be looking at UX through the lens of a digital product. But of course it's actually about other types of experiences as well. So Don Norman, who is the guy that popularized the term user experience, actually said this: "No product is an island. A product is more than the product. It's a cohesive, integrated set of experiences. Think through all the stages of a product or service, from initial intentions through final reflections, from first usage to help, service and maintenance. Make them all work together seamlessly." And that is all nice and everything, but it's a little bit textbooky and it doesn't really tell you what it is. It's a pretty convoluted and long sentence. So let's simplify this, right? So what is user experience? So in the very basic terms, user experience is how you determine if anyone needs the product or service. So that's the first step. Then you build it, which is the design part. And after that, you learn how to improve and maintain it. And that's pretty much it. Figure out if people need it, build it, and then test and improve it. That's it. And the process itself usually starts with three main questions: the why, the what, and the how. The why is always the first one, which basically answers the question, why would anyone want to use this? Then the what is basically determining what the product or service does. So if they want to use it, what does it have to do to make them happy? And how, it's basically finding the right way to design and build the product or the service. So the how is actually the user interface, the accessibility, and the ways of implementing the features so they are easy to do and easy to use and easy to understand. But in even simpler terms, the UX process is simply a constant circle of building and testing, and then building again and testing again. And it doesn't necessarily start with the build. Sometimes it can start with research, so it can start with a test and then you build, but then you test again. So it can start on either side of this circle, but it always just goes around and around. And the build part starts with design. So it's about the flows, the ideas that you have, the wireframes, the user interface. And after all that, the developers do their thing. They create the actual working version. Test is basically research. And research has the two main kinds of research, two main paths. Quantitative research is basically looking for patterns using statistics. So you're asking many people the same questions and looking at the answers, and you can, for example, use a survey for this. So this is basically studying a large set of data in any way, and those statistics can help you understand what is happening, what people want, what people prefer, what people don't understand, and you can use that to then make changes and test again. And the other type of research is the more humanist kind. So the quantitative is more about the data, and it's more about math and statistics and all those difficult things. And then the second one, the qualitative one, is about what people say precisely. So this type of research uses observation and insights instead of numbers. It's like an open-ended question. What feature do you think the app is missing right now? And then you give an answer, and by that answer, if there's a lot of very similar answers, then the researchers can say that this is maybe something that people generally want. And it gives a little bit more flexibility because people can actually suggest pretty incredible things to you. And these things can be really something that you never thought of, but your users did. And it can influence the product in a very big way. And of course, if there are many similar answers in your open-ended question, that means that you may be onto a trend. And this is really good. So we'll get back to research a little bit later, But even if you're just going to do design, it's still good to understand both those main paths of research and also the main techniques that you can use to do that, because it's really not that difficult. It's really something that anyone can do. Plus, knowing all that will actually make it a lot easier for you to communicate with the people in your team that are more fluent in research. So you're gonna have a much better understanding of the design process or what the research outcome actually leads to in your part of the work. Okay, and then our favorite part, the design. So some people say that design is basically about finding a solution to a problem. And sometimes it's actually about creating a problem. But in terms of the user experience design, and this is something that not many people actually understand in the same way, I believe that this design part is the flows, the wireframes, the interactions, and the UI. And this is a little bit different than what the industry is actually trying to lead you to believe, because a lot of the typical user experience designers don't really want to do the UI. They kind of separate it as this little subset of, have a kid with some crayons do the colors, and I'm the designer here, so I'm not gonna really make my hands dirty with grunt work. And I don't really think that's a good approach, and I believe the UX designer should be doing UI as well, because UI is an integral part of good UX. And understanding all the principles behind good UX, so both the research part and the design part, starting with the flow diagrams, the wireframes, or planning the interactions and the features, it actually gives you a much better understanding on what you want to build and design in the UI. And that leads to a lot better UIs, and that leads to a lot better products, because we remove the lack of understanding between the people. So just treat design as just one thing. Don't divide it, because it's really superficial, and it's really mostly done by people who didn't really have the time or the grit to actually learn the color theory, the grids and all that. Because design, especially in digital products, it's really rarely an art form. Like, you don't really need to be an illustrator to be a UI designer. It's just a little bit more precise than the wireframes and backed by some science of what makes the users tick and what actually works visually, what is readable, what is pleasant to look at. But this misconception is something that I'm trying to eradicate, because really, if you want to be a good designer, you really need to know all the parts of the process, and you really need to be able to actually do this process entirely yourself, because that's gonna make it a lot better when you're collaborating with others, because you will have complementary skills, but there will be no gaps in understanding anywhere. Well, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to share this video, like and subscribe, and see you next time.